All right, everyone. We don't have as much polling with regards to impeachment and approval of, proceedings against Trump as we do for other things like Trump approval, congressional approval, certainly the Dem primaries. But we do have now enough polling to take a look at a general snapshot of public reaction to the impeachment hearings that have been going on. By and large, support for impeachment appears to have peaked quite some time ago, back in October, before the actual hearings began, and has steadily declined since then. We have several new polls. The support for impeachment is higher than opposition to it, but at no time, any time recently, has support for impeachment been nearly as high as Trump's disapproval. In fact, it never has been. There's actually a gap. There is a group of people in this country, according to the polls consistently that I'm seeing here when I match them up against Trump's approval. There's a group of people, millions of them in this country, who generally disapprove of Trump but do not want him impeached. That's pretty telling, because these are potentially soft supporters of Trump in the next election if the Democrats fail. And this is another reason to believe that he has a good chance in 2020, because there's no reason to believe that the Democrats are going to be able to cobble together evidence against Trump that's going to allow him to remove him from office or force him to resign. There's no reason to believe that. At this point, impeachment looks like a dead duck. It looks like basically this is their last-ditch effort to try to prevent Trump from being popular enough to be reelected. They're looking at the Dem field. Like, I didn't even know that Deval Patrick had jumped into the field. Apparently he has. He just canceled the college event because only like 2 people showed up at it. I didn't even know he was in the field. He's a relatively well-known name. Why didn't I even know? I'm a political analyst in part for my career. I didn't even know the dude was jumping into the race. I mean, come on, the Democratic field is so massively packed with losers that I don't think the DNC and some of these groups expect the Dems to win. So they're trying to run interference by having an impeachment inquiry that doesn't really mean anything, might not even lead to an impeachment vote. The Dems might lose that if they do. There's no guarantee that they even successfully have an impeachment vote to send it off to the Senate to be dead on arrival, which they've already been warned once by what's his name, Mitch McConnell. It would be DOA if they bother. If they don't have actual demonstrable evidence of anything impeachable, it'll just get voted down in a partisan fashion. That's what I would expect. The only one who might flip is Mitt Romney, because he's still hedging his bets on Trump being a one-termer, and he wants to be able to brag about that afterwards. I think he's wrong, and I think he's been a loser the entire time. Romney care all up on through the 2008 election he wasn't nominated in, the 2012 election he lost in. Mitt Romney is not the person that you want to hitch your wagon to. I'd much prefer Trump. At least he's capable of winning an election that matters and making some actual change that matters for the country, whether you like it or not. When I look at approval for impeachment, though, you could see at some point, if it keeps sliding down in popularity, you could see disapproval of impeachment rise above approval for it. That would be hilarious. And by the way, there is some wiggle room. It's like a 4-point gap between peak approval and now the lowest approval pretty much that you've been at for impeachment. So the American people, there are more people, according to polling, and have been consistently, that want impeachment as opposed to those that don't. But that's not 100% of the population, number one. I've got a kitty trying to clumber down here. It's not 100% of the population. There's a gap there. That gap is narrowing. Impeachment approval is dropping. I would think if you had more polling, it'd probably be lower. I don't understand what the Democrats expect to accomplish. If you've got people who already disapprove of Trump saying, yeah, impeach the bastard, but then you've got millions of people who don't like him, who don't want him impeached, that seems like a losing proposition to the Democrats. I mean, they can't gain fans that they already have, but they can lose people from that gap, from that some millions of voters, potentially, that are being consulted, saying we do not want him impeached. If I disapprove of Trump, but I don't want him impeached, and the Democrats choose to impeach him anyway, and it doesn't even result in his removal from office, I'm probably pissed off at them for wasting their time in a meaningless gesture, a waste of time and millions of dollars, dragging a bunch of people out to corroborate one another's stories, which boil down so far to their opinions. That's what the impeachment proceedings are. They blew their load too quickly. What they should have done is waited until a few months before the election to open these proceedings. Then they could they could have done an October surprise next year. Instead, they decided to do it this year, which was pointless. They're not going to be able to remove him from office anyway. So nothing's been accomplished whatsoever by Schiff and all of these people. If anything, they're pissing away some tacit soft support that would be likely Democratic voters, but that disapprove of this bullshit and probably won't be likely Democratic voters come the next year. Either that or they shelve the proceedings, say, well, it's the evidence just isn't there. We think that he's guilty, but we have to act with decorum, so we're not even going to bother voting. It would be so funny to see them do a total cop-out. You should see this cat right now. If I were using the external webcam, I'd probably show you flipping around and doing floppy purring things all fucking day. It's some good stuff. Yeah, I wonder what Kitty thinks about impeachment. You support impeaching Trump? Yeah, I didn't think so. I can't imagine why any reasonable person would. Most of the people that support it have Trump derangement syndrome. They think, and it's less than 50% of the population. Support for impeachment briefly rose above 50% a month ago. It very quickly slid down. Now it's at like 48. And it's still dropping. It could end up, lower than Trump's approval. That would be kind of the death knell for those proceedings, I would think. And that could very well happen. In fact, I would anticipate a pretty good likelihood that it does. Are the Democrats going to sit there and pretend to let it go? Like, are they going to do that thing where they just ask the legacy media to stop reporting on it? And they're like, well, we have to keep the proceeding going, and otherwise AOC will revolt and take her left-wing voters with her and will die off as a party. So don't report on it quite so much. Be bored. That would be easy to do because the impeachment proceedings are literally fucking boring. For those of you who aren't watching them, because I have to watch them at least in part, unfortunately, it's a bore fest. Schiff leads out and says, oh, you're such a wonderful person. Tell us where Trump touched you. And the person proceeds to ramble about how bad Trump is and how he's a lunatic and they disagree with him. And then Nunes or someone else comes out, cross-examines them, catches them out, and makes them say, by the way, yeah, Burisma investigation was fine. No, I didn't ever talk to Trump. No, I didn't hear the phone call firsthand. I'm not allowed to answer whistleblower questions. And then rinse and repeat the next day. That's what's been going on every single day, and it's boring. The problem for the Dems is that what the AOC crowd really wanted was a blood sports style thing. They want people to shout at each other and swear and talk about how Orange Man bad and make lurid depictions of all of his various high crimes and misdemeanors. These people are by and large younger. They don't remember the Clinton impeachment proceedings. They don't understand anything about the rules and decorum involved with the House of Representatives when it actually bothers to put itself under rules and decorum. And they're bored. So they don't approve it. They're looking with glazed eyes at the impeachment proceedings. The only ones that are still energized, I think, are the ones that are avid Twitter users. And so you have this massive far-left echo chamber there that said, like yesterday, bombshell, there's quid pro quo in the case. Well, no, there's not. One person said that there was quid pro quo to the exclusion of every other testimony given, changing his own testimony from his initial submission before the U.S. House, his own deposition. That's an opinion, dude. It doesn't mean anything. Then starts rambling about Rudy Giuliani and what he knew, and it was inferred that Trump wanted quid pro quo. But they can't establish that. Again, for legal reasons, the impeachment proceedings are a farce. And if approval's not there, and if they're not interesting, it's not a floor show for anyone, what's accomplished? That's about all. Peace out.